Hi and welcome to NZGBC Plugged In, our monthly lunchtime webinar series brought to you by the New Zealand Green Building Council. My name is Lena, I'm the Education and Training Manager here at the New Zealand Green Building Council, and with me in the room today is Sam Archer and Ian Scott, who will take you through today's special webinar on our new tool Homefit. So the team here at the New Zealand Green Building Council, along with other industry partners, have been working really hard in the last 18 months, and we're super happy that we have now launched Homefit, a really straightforward way to check if a home is warm and dry. With me in the room today is Sam Archer, and Director of Market Transformation, and Ian Scott, Development Manager, Residential Projects, who will take you through this new tool and app. Sam, Ian, do you just want to say hello to everyone?
Hi, I'm Sam. Nice to meet you all.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ian.
It looks like most of you have already arrived in the room, so I hope you can all hear us. If you have any issues, for about 30 people in the room now. So if you have any questions, just fire them through. If you can't hear us or have any audio issues, but hopefully that's not the case. Some of you. So today is actually in two parts. So some of you may only want to watch the first part of the presentation, so the next 45 minutes, which will give you a good understanding of what Homefit is and how the assessment and certification works. Others of you have signed up to take part in the actual Homefit Assessor training, which runs in two parts. So the first part, and then we'll take a little break, just between 12:45 and 1 o'clock, and then we'll kick off with the second part, which is the full assessor training, and Ian and Sam will take you through the actual tool in detail. So do not leave us if you're joining us for the full training, and stay on the line. I also just wanted to highlight that we have a new website. So if you haven't already seen our new website and clicked on the Homefit pages, please do so. www.nztbc.org.nz. And that's it from me. I'll hand over to Sam now.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Lena. Great. Okay, so I'm going to spend the next, Ian and I are going to spend the next 35, 40 minutes taking you just with an overview of the new Homefit tool. I think what hasn't been mentioned is that we've been really good at getting some really great top sponsors for the tool. So here they are. I'm not going to list them all out, but these 8 organisations have very generously contributed towards the making of Homefit. And then I'll sort of start by, big sponsor has been ICA. They've given us money, but they've also helped us very much out with some of the technical content, which has been really, really helpful for the development of Homefit. So just to give a bit of context about why we developed Homefit, as many of you will know, we've been running for about 10 years now, NZGBC since 2007, so 11 years. And we started off by running a tool for looking at rating the sustainability of new commercial buildings called Green Star. In 2011, we introduced a tool called Homestar, which is looking at the sustainability of residential buildings. And that tool was, as it was originally conceived, was going to be used for existing homes and new homes on a scale from 1 to 10. But we soon discovered that actually, it wasn't being used very much for existing homes. So really the genesis of Homefit is we wanted to develop a simple tool for existing homes to try and get them to improve. As we all know, we have a lot of very poorly performing residential homes in New Zealand. Just to quickly touch on one other tool that we do, we have a tool called Neighbours NZ, and that's an operational energy rating for office buildings here, which has been very successful. That is actually that's owned by ICA, and we run it on their behalf. Okay, and now we've introduced Homefit. So we now have the full suite of tools for looking at existing commercial and residential buildings. Okay, so I've already touched on this. So, we've been running Homestar since 2011, scale of 1 to 10. What we really wanted to be doing now is targeting that huge. We've got 1.8 million homes roughly in New Zealand, and most of those, as I'll go on to talk about, would be at the very bottom end of this Homestar rating scale from 1 to 10, and we really need to do something about that. So every 5 years, Brands does a house condition survey where they randomly sample 300 or 400 homes, go and have a look at them, see what they're like. They've been running that survey. They've done 5 of them. So the last one was done in 2015, and the reports came out last year. And the sort of depressing thing is that actually in each successive 5-year period, the data on homes hasn't really changed that much. Around 3% of homes have absolutely no insulation in them at all. Another 14% of them have inaccessible roofs, so things like skillion roofs. You know, we would think that the majority of those don't have the insulation in them either. So we've got a lot of homes with you know, maybe getting upwards of 20% of homes have no insulation in the roof. But a further 700,000 homes, so around half of our homes, have less than 120 millimeters of insulation, and we've chosen 120 millimeters because that's a sort of commonly agreed threshold for what would be an adequate amount of insulation in ceiling. So around half of our homes do not have adequate ceiling insulation. Another 700,000 have no or little wall insulation, which is probably not a surprise to most of you. And then around 200,000 have homes have no insulation in the subfloor at all. So the kind of summary of that is that we've still got a big stock of very, very poorly insulated homes in New Zealand. So we wanted to introduce a simple tool to assess existing buildings. That's what Homefit is. It's a tool where if you want to be sure that your home is what we call Homefit, then you need to pass essentially 5 sections. So something about how well the home is heated. Secondly, how well the home is insulated. Does it have decent ventilation systems? A little bit around minimum levels of energy efficiency, and then finally a little bit about safety. So all homes that want to get the Homefit stamp need to have a Homefit assessor attend the home, go and do an inspection. They will then submit that to us, and a percentage of those assessments will be audited by approved third-party auditors, and that way we ensure that we have the integrity of the Homefit assessment process. Like I was saying, a home meeting a certain number of criteria, a minimum standard can call itself Homefit, and this is how we really see Homefit rolling out over time as more and more homes get themselves up to the standard, get themselves the Homefit stamp. That will then start appearing on listings for rental or for sale for properties, and so that Homefit logo will get more and more consumer currency, and people will know more and more about what to look for when they're buying or selling or renting a home. Just a little bit more about what Homefit is and isn't. So it is an assessment of the property, so the properties of the property, so how much insulation it's got, the type of heating system, and so on. Quite rightly, quite a lot of people working in home health and energy efficiency, they often go and visit people's homes and they give them advice, and some of the advice is around getting extra insulation, but some of the advice is also around behaviours. So the way that you behave in your home can have a big impact on its healthiness and warmth, things like using curtains and so on. But because Homefit is a stamp on the actual property itself and stays with the home even if the occupants move on, the tenants say change, then really we're just assessing the actual property itself and not the behaviour of people. A lot of you will be aware of the Residential Tenancies Act, or the RTA, that people talk about, and that is a minimum standard of insulation and smoke alarms for rental properties, and that comes into force fully in the middle of next year. So an assessor coming to check your house for Homefit will also check the RTA compliance, and any report you get will tell you whether the home meets that minimum rental standard. So what we really want is for consumers to go into this, what we call a 3-step process, and that is, as we'll go on to talk about, we have a free online consumer app, and that means that people can check their own homes. It's a very simple app, and it has 20 questions on it. You can go through those 20 questions, have a look around your home, get some really good advice about things that you need to do to improve and get up to that Homefit standard. We then want you to improve your home, so do the DIY yourself if you know how to do that, or get contractors in to install the extra insulation or all the heating systems and so on. And then finally, step 3, verify using a HomeFit assessor that your home is actually at the standard, so that you can use the stamp. For the techie-minded out there, we have now our first version of the technical manual. So version 1.0 is now complete and is available on our website. So if you go to that, we'll talk about the HomeFit consumer app a bit later on. But if you go to that consumer app and you go onto the about HomeFit pages, it will give you a link to the technical manual. Alternatively, you can just go to our NZGBC website, and there is a page there on the technical manual, and you can download the details if that's of interest. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Ian, who's going to talk about minimum qualifications.
Cool, thank you very much, Sam, for that. So we recognise qualifications of several organisations as being the necessary prerequisites for being a HomeFit assessor, so those organisations are listed there. The Home Energy Awareness is a certificate rather than an organisation or a person as such. So you will sit a one-day course to do that, to get that certificate. The second level of that same standard is called Home Performance Advisor, and that's a 2.5-day training course, so much more in depth. Thoroughly recommend that, but our minimum standard is just the one-day Home Energy Awareness certificate. In addition to those training courses, and if you're interested in doing those courses, we are running one next week as well, so get in touch if you'd like to actually become HEA certified. In addition to that, we recognise the qualifications of eco-design advisors and also memberships of those 3 organisations, the Institute of Building Inspectors, the Institute of Building Surveyors, and the Building Officials Institute. So having one of those qualifications is necessary before you become a HomeFit assessor. In addition to that, we run these webinars, and this is part of the performance standard. Is for those that are staying on to the part two of these webinars today, that's one of your training qualifications. Following that, you'll be invited to sit an exam. We'll supply you with contracts and so on to become a qualified and subscribed assessor. We renew those annually, so there will be a renewal period, and you'll have to pay a subscription for each year. So I'm going through just the very minimum standards rather than going through the entire app to show you what it is. These are just the standard, what we call for these particular HomeFit criteria. So the standard is that there's no visible mould, and in fact there's no smell of mould within the house. That the houses can be adequately heated. That there is an efficient hot water heating system. That there's a mechanical extract both in kitchens and bathrooms, and that there's adequate ventilation in other living spaces, so openable windows in the main. That the subfloor is well ventilated and free of damp, and we're largely encouraging people to go for damp-proof membranes or ground vapour barriers, as they're sometimes called, to fulfil that particular criteria, particularly in enclosed subfloors. Insulation is obviously a very key part of this, so dry, undamaged insulation under floors and in ceiling. Particularly with ceilings, we're conscious that downlights are a major source of heat loss, and so we're wanting to encourage and recognise the newer equipment that allows insulation to either abut the downlights or to in fact cover the downlights. The other minimum criteria for HomeFit is that windows have what we call good curtains. Good curtains, we are using that term specifically to represent a whole range of criteria, and so finding out what that criteria is part of the assessor training, and we give guidance of that in the consumer app as well. Alternatively, that that houses are double glazed. The home has no obvious air leaks, and that could be through a range of different issues that may present themselves in people's homes, particularly older homes with perhaps warped windows or old letterboxes that are not closed, or cat flaps that flap around. The home is fitted with smoke alarms is the safety requirement that we're particularly keen to make sure that there's a house that there's a smoke alarm within 3 metres of each bedroom, or in fact within bedrooms, and that there's a smoke alarm on each floor of the house. Now we have optional requirements as well, so you have to fulfil 3 out of these 6 requirements. Going through them very quickly, windows have good curtains and are double glazed, so that's an optional requirement if you achieve both of those factors. Fixed lamps are LED or compact fluorescents. Clothes dryers are vented to the outside. That tap hot water has a low scalding risk, and that there's higher levels of insulation in the ceiling, and that is assessed by zone. So zone 1 and 2 being zone 1 being Auckland and north of the Waikato, the rest of the North Island being zone 2 apart from the Central Plateau, and zone 3 being Central Plateau and South Island. And yeah, lastly, one of the optional requirements that you can fulfil, and this was interestingly, we'll go through some feedback soon, but toilets being dual flush was a relatively easy one for a lot of houses to fulfil in the pilots. Now, in addition to the Homefit standard, we have a higher standard. It's called Homefit Plus, and this recognises higher levels of insulation, higher levels of dedicated ventilation, higher levels of heating or fixed heating sources and so on. In order to get those requirements, you need to achieve all of those 5 factors. And in addition to that, you need to get 6 out of the following 9. Lamps are LED, but there's further improvements. So again, higher levels of insulation on floor and ceiling, that you have a balanced ventilation system, that you have good curtains and are double glazed, similar to the Homefit option as well. Clothes dryers are vented to the outside, that there are again dual flush toilets is another option here. Heat pump or solar hot water system, that there is a rainwater harvesting system, and that the tap water has a low scalding risk. As Sam has mentioned, the Homefit tool also assesses whether or not tenanted properties achieve the Residential Tenancies Act, and so the criteria is that ceiling insulation has to be greater than 70 millimetres. But there's no, and note that in addition, as opposed to the Homefit tool, gaps around downlights are okay. So that recognises older style downlights that need to have a gap, but they do actually have to have that gap. So if you're seeing un-CA rated or un-IC rated downlights, then make sure that they do have those gaps in the insulation. Any bulk subfloor insulation or undamaged foil is allowable under the RTA, as opposed to Homefit, where we do have a minimum thickness for bulk subfloor insulation, and we don't recognise foil. Working smoke alarms within 3 metres of each bedroom, so that's again very similar to the Homefit tool, and at least 1 on each floor. So as Sam mentioned, we do have 2 tools, the Assessor tool and the Conserver tool. For the purpose of this particular seminar, we're just going to be going through the Conserver tool and giving you a look at that. The Assessor tool is obviously available to assessors, and if you wanted to stay on after 12:45 and watch the second part, you're very welcome to find out a bit more about the Assessor tool. So we're just going to open up the tool here and see if it comes up. So if we have a look at the at this online check, we call it, this is the landing page or the home page for the homefit.org.nz online check. As you can see there, we have a little introduction that it's a no-nonsense, straightforward way to check if a home is warm, safe and dry, and it works in 2 easy ways. And you've got those 2 options there, do the online check or find an assessor. So those are the very simple opening page. it's great that we have our references to our sponsors on there as well, and we continue to recognise those through these opening pages. If you look at the top right-hand corner, you can see that there's a menu there which drops down, and that has a couple of the similar ones there. So do the online check and get home certified being the same. It also has an explanatory page about how Homefit works, and I think it also has some finance options as well, which you can go into to see where you can get either some bank loans or voluntary targeted rates, Warmer Kiwi Homes, or home heating assistance funding as well. So there's quite a lot of information on those drop downs, but we're basically wanting the tool to be as easy as possible to get straight into, rather than trying to make it too hard for people to start. Throughout the tool, you'll be as you progress, you'll have this option of saving your page. In order to do that, you need to register and then log into the page. So there's a registration page there and a login, and those will automatically come up if you press the save button there. So you can keep as many assessments as you like on the tool and refer back to them at any stage. We have contact, privacy policy, and terms and conditions as well. The terms and conditions are basically just between the NZGBC and the consumer who is using the tool. For assessors, we'll talk to you a little bit later about the terms and conditions that will come up when a consumer contracts with you. So it's going back to the main screen there. We can just click on the logo. It comes back to the main screen, and we can start an online check. There's a couple of setup questions there. Firstly, what kind of home is it? So we're wanting to differentiate between apartments and standalone houses or attached houses because of the ceiling and underfloor insulation requirements, and obviously they may or may not apply in various cases. But if we just look at the standalone house in the first instance here, you'll then get a second setup question, which is kind of a motivational analysis that helps us with finding out why people are using the tool. We can also develop tailored recommendations for renters as opposed to property owners, perhaps. So yeah, clicking on one of those to indicate who you are and what you're using the tool for is another mandatory. But from then on, it's pretty much straightforward questionnaire. You do the self-assessment, you complete one of these three sections. It's got a little kind of a little reminder there to tell you how to do this. And you'll see that we have a little, what I call a doll's house, but a cutaway section of the house, which is basically just got furniture in it at the moment, and no particular energy efficiency or functional features of the house. And that doll's house will slowly populate as you work through the app, and it'll start adding things in as you say whether or not you have a certain feature. Quite a handy way to do it. It also has little helpful explanatory pop-ups that you can click on to find out more about that particular feature. So you complete these three sections for the home. We've divided into three sections: dry, warm, and efficient and safe, because that kind of works for the number of questions and the time it takes to fill out each of those. Each section is divided into questions. So this one is the mould questions, and here is there visible mould in the home. You can say yes, or you can say no, and say no. It also comes up with a secondary question. Well, maybe does it smell damp or mouldy? And then you might say yes, and so that would activate a particular recommendation in the report. There's lots of explanatory information there, and there's also on the little information sign on the question, if you wanted to find out a bit more about what that question means, it'll open up a little explanatory dialogue box and tell you a bit more about it too. So often with questions, to get out of that, you just push the X on the top right hand corner. So say we've answered that particular question, it goes on to the next one. Ventilation, does the kitchen have a range hood or extractor fan? So say yes. Do bathrooms have an extractor fan? Say perhaps yes. Or maybe, I don't know, what is an extractor fan? oh, hang on a sec, there's quite a lot of detail there about different types of fans and are they connected to the outside wall and so on. So good tips there for people to follow through. And again, once you've gone through those, you can look at the subfloor and see whether or not there's a ground sheet. So I'm not going to go through every question because otherwise we'll be here for probably another 10-15 minutes going through the questionnaire. But once you've gone through a few of those questions, you'll see that on the dashboard, we call it, the progress bar shows you how far you are through each of those questions, 67%. And at this stage, at any stage, after you've started asking questions, you can see this little dialog box that pops up, and you can actually go to your checklist and see how you're doing. So this is the report that you can send to perhaps a landlord if you're a tenant, or vice versa, or you might want to send that to an installer so they can do some work on the bits that are missing. And it goes through the little checklisty thing, and then it talks about the things that are good, and then it talks about stuff that could use some work. And in that area there, you can then find out which particular installers are available in your particular area. Say Canterbury, there's 4 installers there, and you can click through to their emails and send them a copy of the report so that they can actually help you fulfill some of the outstanding issues. So that's kind of how the assessment looks. I think we're happy to do one other thing, which is how to find a Homefit assessor. So what we'd like to do is ensure that the online assessment, which is a self-assessment, is actually verified as being correct. And so we need to have an independent assessor to do that. So as you see, this then pops up to say, find a Homefit assessor. If everything is looking good, this is the time to engage with someone to actually come and certify your house. Again, comes up with a little regional check, and so you can go through particular regions and see the number of assessors. I think in Auckland there's something like 9 or 10 people there, so there's a growing number of assessors. We do encourage more assessors, particularly in the regions, and we'd love to hear from you if you'd like to join that. So I'll go back to the presentation now and go from there.
There you
That's
go.
it.
No, we're ready.
There we go.
So next one.
Yep, perfect. So I'm going to hand over to Sam now to talk about some of the feedback we've been getting.
Wonderful, thanks, Ian. Yeah, so as Ian says, we haven't said yet. We launched Homefit the Monday of last week, so we've been running the scheme for just over a week now, which has been great. And we've had, I think, upwards of 10,000 people visit the consumer website, which is amazing. And 6,000 of those have attempted in some way to do self-check, and around 5,000 of those have done the whole assessment, which has then gone through to get a report, which is absolutely amazing in just over a week. So it's been phenomenally successful. Before we launched Homefit, we did some trial actual assessments of assessors going into homes, and in the end we did about 60 homes got a Homefit assessment. So I thought we'd just finish off by talking about what we learned from that trial period. So out of the 60, around 15% actually passed Homefit, which is a little bit higher than we expected. We thought we might get under 10%, but 15% is pretty good. And I think it's probably fair to say that a lot of those houses in the 15% were newer homes. So I think we will find that it's more the case that newer homes will pass Homefit. 2%, I think that represented 1 home or maybe 2 homes got the Homefit Plus standard. It's nice to see a few homes getting that, which is very good. Some interesting ones about warm windows. We were very, very concerned about the sort of warm window standard being too stringent and that we wouldn't get many homes passing. We do know there are a lot of single glazed homes in New Zealand, and you know, our perception was that not many of them would have what we define as good curtains. But actually, interestingly, you know, getting on for 40% of the homes actually passed the criteria, either having double glazing or warm curtains, which is great to see. And that means that you know, the standard is passable. People are able to achieve that. This graph here is looking at how many homes had adequate heating or not. I won't go through the middle pie chart there because that's quite complicated, but the one on the left, around 2/3 of the homes that we investigated as part of the pilots had adequate heating in the living room. So around 1/3 of them didn't, which is interesting. You know, that's quite a high percentage and not great to see. Around 1/3 of the homes had, as self-reported, as came through by the 60 self-assessments. This is not the self-reporting, this is the actual assessments. Around 1/3 of them had some kind of mold, and this chimes with some of the Brand's House Condition Survey, which had similar numbers depending on how you define mold, but you know, a big percentage. Some figures give the figure as high as 50%, some figures a bit lower depending on how you define mold, but a large percentage of homes have mold in them. Then just a final one, 80% of homes had all of the toilets were dual flush, so one in 5 had non-dual flush toilets. Very good. Some little sort of further details on the feedback from the pilots. We did get, as I said, quite a few newer houses appearing, and we'll go through that in more detail in part 2. But just a very quick summary. We got some confusion around recessed downlights. You know, I think that's a confusing topic. Similarly with cylinders, we had lots and lots of post cylinders that were installed after 2003. The curtains caused a bit of ambiguity, and part 2 we will try and address some of that ambiguity about what constitutes good curtains or not. Similarly with mold, what constitutes bad mold or not, so that was a bit confusing. And then finally, just the last 2 there, we got a lot of laundry facilities in garages, so unvented dryers in garages, and a lot of assessors saying that was not acceptable, but actually in our technical manual we are saying that laundries in garages is fine. And then finally, and this is we'll go through this during the assessments, but you know, in order to pass Homefit, the assessor does need to take quite a lot of photographs so that when we do the third-party auditing, we can really assess that the home meets the standard. Okay, and then just to, I think, finish off the last couple of slides, we just wanted to summarize on really why we introduced Homefit and why we think it's going to be a success. And that is that, you know, if you look at the current situation, we've got different councils, different organizations running, you know, quite different rating tools for existing homes around the country, different tools, different techniques for analyzing. But for us, we see Homefit as being a nationally consistent tool that everyone can rally around. And indeed, you know, our sense very much at NZGBC is that that's happening. At the moment, most of the tools, I mean, if you look at particularly the WAF, was very much targeted at renters, and we see Homefit as being consistent across all tenures. So, and in fact, interestingly, for the 6,000 people we've had actually use the online app, the vast majority of those have been homeowners. I think that comes out of the House Condition Survey, that although rental homes are definitely in a worse state than owner-occupied homes, even the owner-occupied homes are still in very, very poor condition in New Zealand, and we need to do something about that too. If you look at the current tools, you know, people in the know, people who know about kind of energy efficiency and health in buildings know about some of the tools available, but actually I think we'd argue that there hasn't been a sort of consistent public message out there, whereas Homefit, you know, is going to be subject to sort of large national marketing campaigns. All of our sponsors are putting a lot of stuff on their websites about Homefit. And ECA are equally doing some very good marketing material around it. And then finally, none of the tools really have had a really good user-friendly interactive app like our consumer tool. And I think, you know, just the success we've had since we launched is showing that doing something really good online is actually really helpful to get the message out there. And then finally, the long-term ambition we have is that, if you look at the European Union, they've got mandated EPCs on sale or rental of homes. And really, we've had no or very little debate really about the sale of homes and how we get owner-occupied homes to be up to a good standard. And well, the way they've done it in Europe is by having a mandated standard on sale. And that would be great if we started moving towards something like that. And as this slide says, it started with a consistent tool. EPC stands for Energy Performance Certificates, and that's mandated in Europe. So that's great. Okay, I think that's our presentation over. So on to the questions. Please do fire some questions through.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Ian. We do have a few questions already come through, but yeah, please do send us any questions through the box. Got a couple of minutes to go through them. I think there's quite a few Homestar assessors in the room, so they're all wondering how they can become an Homefit assessor. And so Steve and Glenn are asking, what if you are already Homestar assessor? I would like to find out more about becoming an assessor.
Okay. Cool. Hey, thanks for that, Steve and Glenn. So Homestar assessors are not recognised under the Homefit tool as a pre-qualification. So you'll need to achieve a home energy awareness certificate or some other qualification, membership of Boynes, IBI, IBS or EDA network. And I think the reason for that is that we recognise Homestar assessors as having very specific qualifications in the area of new buildings and so on. But what we do need is for them to have the experience of looking at existing older homes and the problems that creates and the kind of issues that are commonly seen. In addition to being reasonably skilled and able to conduct assessments of insulation thicknesses and the like, which may not necessarily be a Homestar qualification or skill, albeit you'll be very familiar with the building code standards.
Cool, thanks, Ian.
Well, we could probably build on that a little bit, which is so if you signed up for the HEA course next week and did that, and also attended for the second part of this and then did the exam, then you would qualify.
Yes, absolutely. So we're just really wanting to make sure that you have actually gone through that particular process. Bit of a pain, so sorry about that for you, for a lot of Homestar assessors in the audience there. But it would be just great if we could get you through that additional bit of training.
Cool, thank you. We also have a question through from Anthony. The group talks about safety, however, there's no mention of damaged asbestos that is around a lot of houses that we check. Surely unstable asbestos is a health problem.
So there's a few things that are not in the tool. Asbestos is one of those. We also don't cover water tightness. Those are very specific conditions that are addressed by other people, possibly even people that are in the room. But there's a whole industry that's been dedicated to looking at those kind of issues. P testing is another one. So there are all sorts of health issues that relate to building work. Our particular focus is on the large issue of respiratory illness that results from cold, damp, and mouldy homes.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, Ian. Actually, that's a really good response. But in addition, I think what we're seeing is that certain building inspectors doing those other inspections can and should and will bolt on the Homefit assessment as part of what they're doing already. So, if building inspectors, for example, are going in and doing pre-purchase inspections for people, then they can and should offer the Homefit service as a bolt-on on top.
Okay, looks like that's all of the questions now. So we will say thank you to those of you who've joined us and listened for the last 45 minutes. We'll take a short break now, and then we'll be back in about 10 minutes. So if you are, oh, here we go, I've got another question from Keith. we'll go through that as well, shall we?
Yep, sure.
Yeah.
Did you see the question from
Yeah,
Keith?
liability. Yeah. Keith, you're asking about where does liability if the assessor gets it wrong sit? So that's a really good question, Keith. So when a consumer signs up for an assessor to come and visit the home, they will agree to terms and conditions for the assessment with us. And that sets out things like, you know, if you get the Homefit stamp, that you'll use that Homefit stamp correctly and so on, and you agree to have an assessor come to your home, that kind of thing. But the contract for the actual assessment, so the assessor going into the house and doing the assessment, is between the consumer and the assessor. So if you become an assessor, you will need to draft up your own contracts to do the assessment, and we are insisting on you having public liability and professional indemnity insurance as part of that. So after that kind of long answer, the answer is that the liability will sit with the assessor.
Cool. Thanks, Sam. Okay, that's it from us. Thanks for joining in. I did send the link through, so please do click on the Homefit page and the NZGBC pages where you can find the resources and the technical manual. And we'll take a break for about 10 minutes, and then we'll see you guys who are joining us for the full assessor training in about 10 minutes time. Thank you. Bye.